Who Gets to Decide? A liberty-based podcast that brings a little piece of sanity to a confused society drowning in a culture of craziness. And here is your host, Seth Martin.
Well, all right. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Who Gets to Decide. This is episode 641. I'm Seth Martin, your host. Thank you for joining me today. Glad you're here, and as usual, happy you're listening. Well, I don't know, man. We might end up spending the next 20 shows talking about Epstein. I probably won't do that, actually, but there's just so much coming out every day. And I thought we did that show where Toker kind of took a responsible view of what was going on with Epstein, the release of the files, and had Ian Carroll on, and they gave you the background of Pizzagate and just stuff like that. And I thought we would step it up a little bit and just kind of tell you what people are seeing in these files. It was me too. I mean, I can look up the files. Anybody can look them up. It's pretty easy. In fact, I'm going to put a link to this Jmail. It's kind of like, it looks like Gmail and it works like Gmail, but it's Jmail, and all the files are in there, and they're not organized really, but you can at least kind of search on certain names and things like that. Supposedly, Ian Carroll is coming up with a solution, him and his partner, to like a search portal where you can really organize the files and go through them in a way that is more efficient. Because what the DOJ did on this, apparently, is it's like they just took a handful of paper and just threw it up in the air and loaded them all on the internet. They're not organized in a particular way. They're not grouped together, and it's making it somewhat difficult for people to go through them and make sense of what they're looking at. And this is probably by design. I could see the DOJ doing that. I mean, they tried to not even release them, right? It's probably no surprise that they're not that eager for people to be viewing these things, especially not with election season coming and things like that. And it's not just the administration. There's also people in the Congress that are not that excited about these coming out, in spite of the fact they all voted to do it. So this I think it just is an example of how political pressure can actually cause the government to do something. The problem most of the time is they divide us up in such a way, with their narratives and whatnot, that there's not enough political pressure to exert in any one particular area to get really what we collectively want as a country. But these Epstein Files, I think, show that one of the things it shows is that there's a lot of people that want this information to come out, because there's a whole kind of lack of justice around this situation. So this handsome guy that I've got on the screen right now, he puts together a summary that I thought was pretty good. I mean, this is kind of high level without going and checking sources and stuff, but I thought it was a good example to just show you the breadth of the information that's in these files. I mean, and the insanity and depravity that very powerful people in America, people that are more or less untouchable from the justice system, at least thus far, have been able to get away with, at least allegedly. Okay. And some of the things that this guy talks about is just shocking, but it's in these emails, and it's pretty amazing. I was looking at one last night from a guy named John Cochran, and I don't know if that's the John Cochran that defended O.J. Simpson or not. I mean, I don't know who he was. I needed to, this is the problem. You need to kind of cross-reference these emails with the context and try to do some research and figure out who is it? Who is this John Cochran? But it's an email to Epstein, and he's talking about, he's thanking him for bringing, the children, or, I can't remember the terminology he used, but he used some terminology, and then he wrote in there, and by that I mean the 12 1-year-olds. Can you imagine bringing like 1-year-olds to somebody to abuse them or kill them or whatever? Who knows what they did, but this is maybe the beginning of holding these people accountable and bringing them to justice. I don't know. Time will only tell, and and there's still some more documents that have been ordered to be released. I like the fact that these congressmen and congresswomen can go look at the files unredacted. I heard that the administration somehow is spying on them when they do that to see what they're looking for, which is kind of interesting. And a lot of the Democrats are looking for themselves. They're trying to see if they're in the files. Whereas people like Thomas Massie and Khanna are trying to see what powerful people are in there. And we've got Lauren Boebert. I've got a clip from Lauren Boebert we're going to play. And then I've got a speech that Khanna gave on the House floor that I think is, it's very uplifting, because it's, in some ways it's kind of naive, but it's the America that we've all been taught, in grade school or whatever. But it's inspirational because he's talking about, hey, we can get America back, but we've got to deal with this. This is like a family emergency, that you have to deal with before you can move on with the rest of your life. And that's kind of what's going on with this Epstein situation. So, but I thought we would just start with showing you the full breadth of what we're talking about here, because a lot of people still don't even know what is the range of crime that's taking place here, and what is the range of behavior that is taking place here. And so I thought this guy did a really good job of just summarizing it, showing the documents in the background so that we can all see. Of course, you're not going to be able to see much from this viewpoint, but I do have I have the source file, and I'll send you, I'll give you links to this for the show notes page, and you can go back and look at them yourself. All right, let's go ahead and start this one. Well, I screwed up. All right, let's go ahead and start this one.
Since I've been going through the Epstein Files, I found these things. Mutants, time travel talk, Biden's body double with hyper-realistic masks, human cloning, designer babies, human sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, multiple presidents gang raping a dude and cutting off his feet, torture with public officials, organ harvesting, the Illuminati and a list of members, ritualistic child sacrifice, eating babies and dismembering them, confirmation that Pizzagate was real, as well as adrenochrome, which means they're actually transfusing and drinking the blood of scared babies. We have Israeli connections as well as intelligence connections. Tons of really wild claims and photo evidence. President Trump accused of raping a little teenager girl and many others, along with many other celebrities and politicians doing basically the same thing. Intense amounts of honeypot and blackmailing. Bitcoin connection, talking about Satoshi, discussing creating transgendered 3-year-olds. The fact that the guy who is dead, they're claiming is Epstein, and the guy who is alive, that they're claiming is Epstein, look like two totally different people, meaning that Epstein's probably alive. And the people involved with securing him in the jail testified to falsifying evidence. Plus, there was a non-prosecution agreement years before that, meaning the government could not prosecute Jeffrey Epstein or his people. That's why Ghislaine Maxwell, the Disney child recruiter, was trying to use that to get out of her sentence. MK Ultra style discussions about how trauma and traumatized people can unlock supernatural abilities. For some reason, they were talking about planning the pandemic years before it happened. Not to mention the systemic protection of pedophiles and the constant neglect of victims and witness testimony. Somehow, with all this evidence, we've seen no investigations, no prosecution. I feel like this is the age of disclosure, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, they disclose aliens. At this point, we need a protest, or they're just gonna keep doing it. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been mad about this for a long time, and I feel like this is our only chance to band together and stop this right now. So my hope is that...
Yeah, boy, do I agree with that. And, I've been hearing things, and of course we haven't talked about it on the show, but I've been hearing all of these things that he's talked about for years. I mean, the people I follow kind of, not that they are full out conspiracy theorists, but they dig deep and do deep research, and they have connections to CIA and people like that. I mean, we've profiled Whitney Webb on here. Whitney Webb is an extraordinary researcher. I mean, she has dug into this subject and is not more knowledgeable on it than almost anybody before the files were released. And, she talks about how this really all started after World War II, where the CIA and the mafia began to work together. Because the thing about the CIA, which you have to remember, is it has a budget, just like every other government program. But all these black ops, these things that are, not authorized by Congress or whatever, like if you want to go overthrow the Sandinistas or whatever in Nicaragua, and you need to do that kind of off the books. That's what Iran-Contra is about. Well, we got to do something over here to raise money so we can go fund our little war down here in Nicaragua. Or if you want to overthrow Poroshenko or whatever in Ukraine, I'm saying the wrong name, but if you want to overthrow the Ukrainian government, but you can't officially do that as the CIA, you work with USAID and you work with the CIA to sell drugs to raise money so that you can go fund your little regime change war, the beginnings of a war. I mean, Vietnam was like this. Vietnam for years was just advisors, right? If you go to the history of Vietnam, you'll hear about, we got 1,000 advisors in Vietnam. Well, who are these advisors? Who do they work for? What are they doing? Well, they're CIA, and they're stirring the pot, right? They're trying to create a war so that in that particular case, they didn't want communism to spread. But notice it spread anyway. So anyway, you need kind of off the books money to do all this crazy shit. And, so this has been going on for a long time. And, think of like Epstein as just the next level up, right? You not only do you need to do some of the stuff I just talked about, but you need to make sure that you get cooperation and additional funding from Congress. Well, how do you do that? Well, you blackmail people and you get them in uncompromising situations and you tell them that you're going to release this information if they don't vote a certain way and things like this. This has been going on for a long time. I saw an email in one of my searches the other day that it had George Bush 1 was, like on a party on a yacht, and there was a bunch of African children there, and it's talking about how he raped them for sure, but then killed one of them. And you're like, what? I mean, this is insane, right? This is happening in America, and these are presidents, and these are high-level people. These are powerful people in our elite class that hold very powerful positions. That's why I always mock them and say they're in public service. I'm holding up bare fingers quotes, public service. Yeah, some public service this is, right? And, without something like this to show people what our government is really up to is, you just sound like a nut. And so in some ways, a lot of people feel vindicated, right? Because, you're just a conspiracy theorist. That's ridiculous. And the reality is some of this stuff is way beyond what people could even imagine. I mean, it's so depraved. And you're like, how, it's so depraved that it's got to be demonic. It's got to be spiritual in some way. And, when you're talking about eating babies and stuff, that is next level crazy demonic stuff. And for, normies, for people that don't understand what government is, we talk a lot about what government is. Government really, I'll talk about it being force, but it's really just a gang. Okay. Notice that the CIA kind of partnered up with the mafia. This is natural for government. Government is just the toughest gang in town. Okay. They have a monopoly on the use of force. If you challenge that, you can end up in jail. You can end up dead. This is just the biggest, baddest gang that there is. That's essentially what government is. And their tool of persuasion, if you want to call it that, is force. It's death. It's jail. It's all these things. And for me, the Epstein Files are the first step of getting normies to really understand what you're dealing with here when you're talking about your federal government. And this whole Republican Democrat thing is just a show. This is for entertainment. This is to keep people engaged and asleep and fooled into thinking that they're somehow they are the government. You'll hear people say that from time to time. You'll say, we are the government, meaning we the people are the government. No, we are not the government. We're not eating babies and raping children and, doing all this crazy shit. I'm not doing that. You're not doing that. So we are not the government. And to me, in my mind, this is one of the first steps of really getting people in touch with what that is. And, look, our founders knew this. They knew that men were not angels, okay? And that they needed to be tied down from power. And the reality is, just over time, you and I, voters, my parents, their parents, generations of people have just allowed the government to creep into increased levels of power and steal our liberty along the way. That's just the reality of the situation. And most people, even today, still don't believe this. But the Epstein Files and what this group of elites were doing has the ability to really bust that wide open and really introduce normies into what government actually is. And so from that standpoint, I think this is a very positive kind of situation. This is going to be, look, anytime something, you're doing something illegal or, you're taking shortcuts or whatever, there's going to be some sort of come to Jesus. Okay. The question is when. Ultimately, it comes at the end of your life, when you die and you stand there before God and you have to account for your life and who you were. Did you believe in God? Did you believe in Jesus? Or did you waller in the things of man? And all these people, to the extent they even believe in God. I mean, I think some of them believe in the devil. It's not that they believe in the devil, they worship the devil. And so this is like spiritual and demonic and crazy, and and it's got the bubble wrap of government around it, and it's all shrouded in legitimacy. And so from the point of revealing that, I think this is all very positive situation. All right, let's continue here.
You hear these things and you realize this is not a science fiction movie. This is real life. This is happening now. My name is Static G. Please follow me.
All right, I didn't realize we were that close to the end on that one. But yeah, so there's not much more to say. I'll jump into the next clip. But yeah, this is just insane stuff. And certainly you didn't learn about this in 8th grade history. I mean, you didn't learn that your government was doing things like this. One of the things I've talked about before on this show is there's a documentary on Netflix. It's pretty good, actually. It's called Turning Point: The Bomb in the Cold War. And I would recommend that you watch that. It delves into some of the stuff that the CIA has admitted to. There's a whole bunch of stuff the CIA has not admitted to. But there's a couple of things in there, like the Bay of Pigs, and there's several things, actually, that the CIA has admitted to. And even that, when you watch that, you're like, wow, I can't believe they did that, And I guess some people have kind of accepted that and said, well, that's still worth it, right, to have the government we have. But when you see something like these Epstein Files and you look through there, it's just going to blow people's minds. In fact, I was talking to my wife about this, and she doesn't even want to know about it. I mean, she's like, I don't want to know about all that evil stuff, right? All right, this next clip I have is of Lauren Boebert. She's a congresswoman, and she's being interviewed on Newsmax. Now, several congressmen and women went to the DOJ into like a skiff or something, and were able to view these files unredacted. And so presumably they were able to see people's names and get a little bit more information and maybe get some more context. I'm not sure exactly what viewing them unredacted does in addition to getting the names, but it certainly makes it easier to follow, what's being communicated in these emails. And you can get a sense of kind of what's going on. And so I thought this interview of her on Newsmax was interesting because she's a congresswoman, and that brings some credibility to what she's saying. So let's jump into that real quick and see what she has to say.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert joins us now. She spent today poring over millions of unredacted Epstein files. And Congresswoman, it's good to see you. Let's start with what you found. What did you see?
Yes, well, this was certainly a difficult day. I was only there for a short time yesterday reviewing the unredacted documents and spent several hours today reviewing many, many more. And there's still so much more that I would like to find. But this seems that it wasn't only the trafficking of young girls, as the narrative suggests, but there are code words that suggest Jeffrey Epstein and his associates could maybe even be engaging in some sort of consumption. Is that human consumption? Are there code words? There's a lot of talk of beef jerky. There's a restaurant called The Cannibal where the owner is listed in some of these documents. Now, that isn't a restaurant that is just proclaiming to serve human meat by any means. But some of this just, it seems that there's a lot of conspiracies that make you wonder. And I saw more emails about torture, and these coded conversations still have a very clear topic that torture was big. It was a big driver for them. And these were sick people doing very, very sick things. As you mentioned, there are many women who are involved in this. You have folks that were working directly for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Right. And a lot of these women are the ones that are sending emails saying, here's one 10 years old, 11 years old, 9 years old. And it's just very disturbing to see the women who are involved in this as well.
I want to get to the torture. If we can skip ahead to take 7 here, guys. This is an email reportedly from Epstein to the...
All right, before we do that, yeah, you know, these are... What's amazing here is these are people in service of government, you know, a lot of them. And it's like, man, do they not have anything better to do? I mean, when would you have time to sit around and run something like this? I mean, I don't know. I don't know where all these, of course, they're rich people. Maybe they have a lot of time, but yeah, you know, this is just some crazy stuff. And, you know, to the extent that people are breaking the law, what I don't understand is how can the FBI have these files and not go interview these people? Like, what is this all about? What are you talking about here? See if you can get somebody to flip. See if you can build a case. There just seems to be no interest whatsoever from the law enforcement side of our government to actually build a case, to actually go interview some of these people, ask them questions about what the hell are you doing here? You know, what is this all about? What are we talking about here? You know, the lack of interest really in our government, to me, it just speaks to how people, you know, they have this idea of government, and then there's what actually is. And what actually is a group of people that don't follow the law the way they're supposed to. They don't prosecute every crime. They're very subjective in the way they prosecute crimes and very unequal. You know, there is no equality under justice or equality under the law. You know, if you have money and you can pay people off and you can control certain groups, then you can get away with murder and rape and child abuse and all this stuff. And if you're just an average schlump, you know, guy just trying to make his way in America, you plead guilty because you don't want to spend $100,000 in lawyer fees. I mean, that's the America we're living in, you know, and it just seems like we waste so much money and so many resources on stuff that we don't want the government doing. And then stuff like justice, to carry out justice, something that we all value deeply, just gets ignored. I mean, it just doesn't get done at all. And it's really something to see how, you know, and just apply this in your own life. Think about how you're going 5 miles over the speed limit and you get pulled over and you're inconvenienced in a huge way. You've got to go to some small town, appear in court, or you got to send something in by mail and basically plead guilty and pay a fine. Maybe you get deferred adjudication. Maybe you can take defensive driving, but you're massively inconvenienced for some minor infraction of the law. And these people these FBI agents and the department of the FBI can't be bothered to go and even ask these people any questions. It's like, what are we doing? What is happening in America? And I just think this is outrageous. I mean, I thought government was outrageous before, but this is like way, way, way outrageous. I mean, this is not even close to what we want government to do. I used to tell people all the time, I'd say government doesn't do what we want it to do. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? I said, well, let's say you get something stolen at your house. Your house gets broken into and your wife's wedding ring gets stolen or something. The police aren't going to spend any time, less than zero time, trying to find out who stole your wife's wedding ring. Okay? That's just the way it is. In fact, they'll come and they'll fill out a report and they'll ask you, do you have insurance? In other words, there's no accountability on their side at all to protect your property, to protect you. They just want to know if you have insurance, and they'll fill out a police report for statistical reasons or whatever. And meanwhile, they're hiding behind bushes trying to catch people going 5 or 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. They do things we don't really want them to do because there's money involved. It's what's called rent seeking in economic terms. So government's only really involved in all these rent seeking activities, and they're not involved in carrying out justice. They're not involved. Look what they did to Trump. Was that justice? Hauling his ass into court and charging him with 38 felonies, quote unquote felonies, for, making a mistake or hiding something on his taxes or whatever. I mean, how many businesses do that? I mean, this is just, it's ridiculous, This is what I'm talking about. Government does nothing that we want it to do. I mean, it fights wars that we don't have a problem with some group of people, but the government finds some interest and decides to pick a fight with somebody and sends your children over there to die in it. And I mean, it's just it's out of hand. And when you look at something like this Epstein stuff, it's even more out of hand than someone like me could catalog. It's just obscenely out of hand. All right, let's continue here.
Saudi Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, who's one of 6 names that's been revealed that were unredacted after pressure to the DOJ. It says, where are you? This is from Epstein to this Saudi Sultan. Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video. That Sultan was a name that was redacted in here and then unredacted. Can you elaborate more on what you're seeing regarding torture?
Unfortunately, and maybe fortunate, so it's not scarred into my being, a lot of these unredacted files that we are able to view have missing items and are still further redacted. Some of them we've been able to unredact to a larger extent, but a lot of the images aren't there where they say they are, where a JPEG link is present. There's not a way to actually view that, and we're being told by the DOJ that it just doesn't exist, even though the link is there. And, there's a line here, I think, between victim and perpetrator that is very, very thin. And there's a lot of heat on the DOJ right now, and I get that. But I can also see from reading these emails that some of the individuals claiming to be victims could have also been groomers themselves. Well, and with missing information, it's hard to tell exactly what is being discussed.
Yeah, that was the what's been alleged this week, is that there's women redacted from the file simply because.
All right, hold on a second. That's why you go investigate. When it's like it's a little murky, you go ask people questions. You say, hey, I'm with the FBI. I have some questions about these emails. What the hell are you talking about? What's going on here? Who are you talking to? There's just no interest. Our government has less than zero interest about what's happening with all this seemingly criminal activity involving underage children, potentially criminal activity, people being murdered and consumed or their blood drained and drank or whatever the hell's going on. There's enough there to get in your car, drive over to somebody's house, wherever they are, and say, hey, I have some questions for you. I'm with the FBI. What the hell? Why is it so hard, or why is it so unbelievably overt for us to assume that something like that would happen. By the way, this is why people say things to you like, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Because in their mind, they're thinking, if something like this was going on, the FBI would be all over it. The FBI would be investigating it. So in their mind, it's just, that's a conspiracy theory. There's no way that's true because our government would go investigate it. Because that's the expectation that people have. Oh, there's some crime taking place? Yeah, I would expect my government to go look into that and see if they can figure out who the criminals are and take them off the street, But no, there's nothing. There's nothing like that. And there's still nothing like that. That's what's amazing. It's still not happening. Even with just throwing it all in our face and creating all this outrage, they're still not doing anything. In fact, I read the other day that this guy, Sultan whatever of the UAE, he actually was arrested by the Arab Emirate government. In fact, I think he's the first person named in all these files that's been arrested. So there's arrests taking place in the other parts of the world, like the King of England is looking at prosecuting his brother, okay, Prince Andrew, but nothing is happening in America. What the hell? I mean, how? I think I told this story before, but when we had all these, all this movement west, in the wagon trails, the Oregon Trail and all this kind of thing, it was very difficult to time it and all that. You had to be like over the mountains before winter came, and they didn't stop for anything. They would travel about 15 miles a day, and they wouldn't stop for anything except one thing. And you know what that was? To fulfill justice. That's how important it is that Americans, that's something that we all believe in. Nowadays you have to believe in transgenderism, gay rights, and there's all kinds of things that, that the elites want you to believe in now to be American. What is it to be an American? Well, you have to believe in all these things. But way back when, there was just a handful of things people believed in. They believed in being secure in their private information, their private papers. They believed in justice. They believed in being able to have a gun to protect yourself and your family. They believe there was just a handful of things that people believed in. Nowadays, you look at what it is to be an American. You can't even hardly figure it out because there's just so many of these cultural things that you have to be okay with, and you have to be okay with Muslims praying in the street, but you also have to be okay with Christians can't bring a Bible to school. That's separation of church and state. And there's just so many ridiculous things now that they've just thrown in our face. And the one thing that we really want them to do is to protect us equally under the law. Take criminals off the street. Don't take criminals and protect them in our society and let them prey on innocents. That's something we can all agree with. And yet nothing happens. It's really something to recognize that and acknowledge it.
They're women, and just the appearance that they were victimized, even though they might have been like pimps, like female pimps that were moving these women to Epstein, which is a frustration that we're seeing. Yes. Here's one more. Let's just show you this. This is to and from, both redacted on this one. To and from are both redacted on this one. I want to go to take 6 if we can. Did you know somewhere in the hills outside the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G? Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex. I mean, after what you've seen today, does an email like that seem authentic and realistic to you, that something like that could have happened?
Yeah, so we are seeing these names unredacted, and some of the names, even though they're claiming to be victims, the DOJ is claiming they are victims, have had public stories about them and their encounters with Epstein and even Ghislaine Maxwell. And so, I do see a pattern with a lot of these females who were associates, lieutenants, second in command, executive assistants to these two horrible human beings, these horrible pedophiles, creeps. And there is a pattern, and it's hard to believe that they can claim to be a victim when they are continuing to invite people to these things and have conversations like that, especially when bodies have been buried. And we all want justice and accountability, and I just think some accountability still needs to be had.
Do we all want justice and accountability? I mean, I don't know. I don't see that. I mean, again, politicians are really good about throwing around lofty words and then the meeting's over and nobody does anything. I mean, that happens all the time. This is why you go investigate. All these unknowns that they're bringing up, were these women victims or were they perpetrators? Okay, well, you have to go find out. You have to go interview them. You have to go investigate. I mean, I'm not so sure there's anything more important that the FBI should be working on than this. I mean, that's how serious I think this is. And they ought to take it the next step further and say, why was Epstein and his crew doing this? Who else was involved? Was the CIA involved? Was Mossad involved? To what end? What were they doing? Were they bribing politicians? Were they controlling politicians and powerful people in media and entertainment and government? What exactly was going on here? But you know what? You got to go investigate. Look at all the time they spent investigating Trump for nothing. For nothing. I mean, is this the kind of government? Is this what we expect from government? Really? Let's go investigate Trump because he can't be president. He's this and that. Meanwhile, you got people, killing people and draining them of their blood and drinking it and weird demonic shit like this. What the hell is going on? Go find out. Go interview. Bring out your little notebook and take some notes. Arrest some people. Put some pressure on some folks. Go ask Les Wexner what the hell he was doing. He's named in the documents as Epstein's co-conspirator. A co-conspirator of what? Child trafficking, obviously. So go put some pressure on Wexner and see what he knows. He's an old man now. Do we want to send him to prison? Well, I do. But if you can get some information out of him and he can blow the whistle on, 5,000 people, then let's do it. That's what I say. But you just get nothing from these people. Absolutely nothing. It's a complete outrage. And I really think, I just believe all the way down to my toes that the best thing for America is just to completely break up into 50 states and completely dissolve Washington, D.C. and let it just die. Okay, just let it die of old age. Take the country back, be a loose union of 50 states, and call it good. Okay, and there is no central authority collecting taxes. It's just people living in various states. And I think we would all be so much better off. The world would be better off. All right, let's continue.
Or these lieutenants.
Right. The Deputy Attorney General says that he doesn't believe that any more charges will come from all of this. And you're saying that there's still deeper redactions and things that you can't see. Why is this happening? My final question to you. Why is this so difficult?
I wish it were not this difficult. From the beginning, the rollout of this has been an embarrassment, and that's why I forced the release of these files. But I do believe that we can still get justice and accountability on some of these names. Even a federal judge said regarding one of the women who is redacted over and over in these emails, she pled immunity. She received immunity in one case, but later a federal judge said that he believes the same woman knowingly was engaged in these criminal activities. And so I do think that there are some instances where maybe the statute of limitations has not yet been met and there could still be further prosecutions. And I think it's time to stop sweeping this under the rug. The American people demand accountability. Congress is demanding accountability, and we have got to uncover this further. These are sick, demonic Satanists who have been running too much of our country and harming too many children for far too long.
Yeah, I just, again,
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? Why is it being allowed to persist? And forget about the statute of limitations. Let's go change the law or something. Or, focus on the people that are murdering people. I mean, there's statute of limitations there is forever. I don't know. This is an embarrassment, really. And when you look at, if you contrast this with what we're told about America, the way we learn about our country, and how we're the greatest and the most awesomest, freest people in the world and all this stuff, this is not indicative of a free people, what they're talking about here. This is kind of like something you would expect to happen in Iraq under Saddam Hussein or something. It's not American. This is not uniquely American behavior. This is, and you certainly can't call yourself a Christian nation if you're just allowing this kind of crazy, demonic, Satanist shit to be happening all over it's all over the world. But I don't know, man. To me, it's just, we've got to stop it. Whatever we got to do to stop it, we got to do. And we can't get bogged down in all this,
it's just,
political shit. I mean, if we have to just dissolve the United States of America, forget about the FBI, send everybody home, and we will create a new police agency to go look into this. Just dissolve the FBI. I say it's that important. All right. This next clip, I want to set it up a little bit, is Khanna. Now, Khanna is a Democrat, and he worked with Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and a couple others to really push this whole thing to a head and force it to a vote. And they're still leading it. They're the ones asking all the questions, in the hearings, and really pressing Pam Bondi and really pressing Kash Patel and various people, even though they're the same. I mean, you never see this kind of same side of the aisle antagonism going on with the Democrats. They're throwing softballs. Their people have to come to Congress, and the Democrats are just throwing softballs. You got Thomas Massie, who's a Republican, sitting across from Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and he is digging in on these people, okay, hard. And this just tells you this is someone of very high character and someone we should all get behind. And Trump trying to get this guy, him and Miriam Adelson, trying to get this guy primaried out of his job, that's just ridiculous. You're really going to see the House and the Senate circle the drain if they get rid of people like Thomas Massie and Rand Paul and Khanna. That's just crazy. But anyway, I thought this speech by Khanna was really good. It's talking about all this bad stuff, but it ends with a very inspiring kind of message. And I just thought it was really good. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about this guy. I mean, politically, I don't agree with him about a whole lot of things, but man, these guys, you just can't imagine how hard it is to stand strong in the face of all this opposition that Khanna and Thomas Massie are facing. And you can't say enough good things about these guys. All right, let's play this clip real quick.
Speaker, yesterday, Congressman Massie and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein Files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted. In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massie and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI. Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massie and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files. But the story gets worse. The reality is that Donald Trump's FBI scrubbed these files in March, long before Thomas Massey and I passed the Epstein Transparency Act.
Thank you, Mr.
Now, my bill is clear. The Epstein Transparency Act requires them to unredact those FBI files. And yet the Justice Department said to me and to Congressman Massey, we just uploaded whatever the FBI sent us. And guess what? The FBI sent scrubbed files. That means the survivor's statement to the FBI, naming rich and powerful men who went to Epstein's island, who went to his ranch, who went to his home and raped and abused underage girls or saw underage girls being paraded, they're all hidden. They're all redacted. It's a little bit of a farce. They're inviting all the members of Congress to go to see the Department of Justice, quote unquote, unredacted files, but they've got all redacted files from the FBI. And it's not the fault of the Justice Department attorneys. They were just told upload things that Donald Trump's FBI had already scrubbed. It's a blatant violation of the Epstein Transparency Act, but it also asks a fundamental question. Who are they protecting? Why are they protecting these rich and powerful men, people I call part of the Epstein class? Why are we in a country where there is no elite accountability for people who do the most heinous things? You have in England the king now calling for an investigation and possible prosecution of his own brother. You have in Norway the princess who no longer has support to be the queen. And yet in the United States of America, we have someone in the cabinet, Howard Lutnick, who is all over these Epstein files, who allegedly had business with Epstein after he was convicted of pedophilia, and he still is in the cabinet. We need to ask ourselves, are we in America going to have elite accountability? Are we going to call on rich and powerful people who broke the law or cavorted with a pedophile, a convicted pedophile? Are we going to call them to account? Are we going to have prosecutions for billionaires who went to this island and either raped underage girls or saw underage girls being raped and didn't say anything? Are we going to have investigations? I'll tell you what this is about. It's not just about the 1,200 survivors. It's about two tiers of justice in America. It's about people who can accumulate wealth and power and don't have to care about the rest of America. They have destroyed so much of this country. Income inequality is at a 60-year high. Workers' salaries are less than they have been for 75 years as a part of GDP. Somehow this country seems to be working for the rich and powerful, but it's not working for ordinary working-class Americans. I say enough. It's time to begin with accountability for the Epstein class. Hold them in front of Congress, those people who visited the island or did business with Epstein after he was a convicted pedophile. Investigate them, prosecute them, and let's return to democratic accountability in the United States of America. Let's return to one system of justice in the United States of America. Let's return to a place where every American has a stake in this country.
Yeah. Wow. No, that was a great
Mr. Speaker,
speech from the House floor. Now, one of the reasons he did this from the House floor is you can't get in trouble revealing, apparently, this is what I was able to find out. If somebody's names are redacted, or something's classified, you can reveal it from the House floor publicly and you can't get in trouble. So that's one of the reasons he did that. But yeah, I mean, isn't this your understanding of America? Like that nobody gets away. I mean, you don't get away with murder. Some people do. I mean, I'm sure we're going to find out that somewhere in some file somewhere, the Clintons are going to be named as murderers. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. There's just too many dead bodies around those people, allegedly. I mean, these are great questions. Are we going to investigate this? I mean, look at this two-tier justice system. Is that what the Constitution is all about? Is that what the Declaration of Independence is all about? Is that what America is all about? If you've got money and you're powerful, you can do whatever you want. But if you're, just an average citizen, you don't have the same level of liberty. You don't have the same level of freedom. Man, I don't know. That's not the America I learned about. And I think this is, I don't think there's anything more important. This is why I was so offended when when he was asked, or actually Pam Bondi was asked about these files, I don't know, 5-6 months ago. And Trump interrupted and said, "May I?" He goes, "Are you asking about Epstein, that creep?" This was so offensive to me because this is real. And he just brushed it off like it wasn't real. And is it because he's in there? Yeah, probably. Is Trump maybe going to have to resign? Maybe. In his mind, the most important thing he can do is stay president. But in my mind, the most important thing that needs to be done is we need to get to the bottom of this. And all these people that are involved, they either need to go to jail, they need to be removed from polite society, they need to be investigated, they need to be prosecuted. Some of them maybe need to be put to death, okay? There's serious freaking crimes here. And are we going to just say, oh, well, that's in the past, do the Hillary Clinton thing? What difference does it make now at this point, that kind of thing? Or are we going to do something about it? And I'm all for doing something about it. I mean, to me, the truth can't hurt you. People that say this is going to destroy America, well, okay, maybe America needs to be destroyed. But whatever the truth is what it is. And, maybe people need to open their eyes. Maybe their eyes need to be opened around what government really is and what government is really all about. Instead of this imaginary, narrative that they have in their head that has nothing to do with reality, but informs everything they do politically, who they vote for, what party they support, the way they think about America and all that we do here, what wars we get into, what wars they support and which wars they don't support, and just everything. It informs everything you think about the country you live in. And to me, there's just nothing more important than getting to the bottom of this. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you guys for coming in and listening. If you're a listener only, like on podcast or whatever, if you could go watch a YouTube video and like and subscribe to it, it'll help the algorithm a little bit. But then go back to listening. That's perfectly fine. That's what I do. But share the show with somebody you think might be interested in this subject, somebody that needs a little bit of convincing that you know how it is. People that are close to us, we can't convince, but we can convince people that are like not close to us for some reason. We seem to have more credibility with people that are further away from this than people that are, very close to us. So if that's you, you can send this video and maybe I can convince them of this way of thinking. Either way, come back and listen, and we'll have a new show for you here in a couple days on Who Gets to Decide. All right, everybody, I'm out. Peace.